Shot, mate. Turn your camera only auto set.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be taking any pictures anyway.
One, two, one, two. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing. Testing.
Can't hear you.
You want to, there'll be a delay of about a minute.
Oh, I can hear me. Yeah, it's on. That's the thing you do. You don't put the comments on, but really plenty here already.
You got the pop-up shop.
We got it.
Should put it up tonight. Yeah, good attendance.
I don't think anybody's going to be spending it.
I don't think it's going to be fun.
You don't say it. On the G-way. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's it. Don't think in your class. 4XL and 4. Real high temperature.
before you go into it.
Showing the levels there.
Yeah, it might come through now.
Showing levels.
Coming through now. Just 1 minute.
Coming through now.
Right, once again, good evening and a warm welcome to the Ratcliffe Bar for the 2024 Fans Forum. Welcome to everybody here that's here this evening. Great to see so many people. Just a reminder, we are streaming this live online to the club's YouTube channel. So with that in mind, just be very, very conscious. We've got some of our younger fans here tonight, which is great to see. And there'll be a lot of people online tonight as well who will be tuned in. So please just be conscious of your tone and any inappropriate language, because you're not just a reflection of yourselves, also a reflection of the football club. The way it's going to work tonight, we've got a panel which we'll introduce in a moment. We're going to split into two halves. The first half will be with our head coach Jim McNulty. We'll then take a 10-15 minute break, and then we'll resume for the second half of the forum when the whole of the panel will be able to answer your questions. But the first 45 minutes with Jim is just football related questions only, and then in the second half you'll be able to direct your questions to the panel for anything to do with football, whether it's on or off the field. So without further ado, let's introduce our panel this evening. First of all, we're delighted to say we're joined by our director who represents the Dale Supporters Trust. It's Mr. Murray Knight. Can we have a round of applause for Murray, please? Sat leading next to Murray is another director here this evening. We're delighted to say we're joined by Mr. Richard Knight. Round of applause for Richard. To Richard's right, we're delighted to be joined tonight by our first team coach, our head coach, Mr. Jim McNulty. Thank you for coming, Jim. Next on the panel tonight, we're delighted to have the company of our chairman, Mr. Simon Gage. We're also joined this evening by another member of the board, Mr. Tony Pockney. And finally, last but certainly not least, our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. George Dells. Round of applause for George, please. So we're going to get underway shortly. As I say, the first 45 minutes, all the questions will be directed to our head coach, Jim McNulty. We'll start working way around the room. You'll be able to ask your question to Jim. Hopefully Jim will answer it. If you want to ask a follow-up question, then that's perfectly fine, and hopefully we'll get all the answers that you want to hear. So we're going to start on this side of the room. So if you want to ask a question to anyone on the panel, but the first 45 minutes is just to Jim only, can you just raise your hand? So first one on this table here, who's got a question for our head coach? Right, I'm surprised you've got nothing to say. Right, okay. Next table, if you'd like to ask a question of our head coach, Jim McNulty, please raise your hand in the air. No takers on this table. You're in for an easy ride tonight, Jim. We'll go down to the next table here. Surely someone's got a question for our head coach, Jim McNulty. There we go. Right, if you just introduce yourself to Jim, and Jim will answer your question.
Hi Jim, I'm Nick.
Hi Nick, how you doing, mate?
I am alright, thanks. I'm just wondering about the two lads who've arrived from United, or who are with us from United. Is there any chance of them playing at any point?
The simple answer is I'm hoping so. It's a unique situation in terms of loan, and it's nothing that I personally have ever seen before or been involved around in a football club in my playing days. So it's classed as a work experience, and it's fully led by Manchester United. So at the moment, how closely you're following Man United or not, I don't know. Maybe some people are in the room, I'm not too sure. But Man United are, at the moment, sort of, not claiming, because I'm sure it's correctly so, but expressing that they've got serious injury concerns throughout the first team squad and down. So at the moment, those two boys have mainly been training over with United, because some of the younger guys there have been training up with the first team. And Sam Mather particularly has trained with the first team quite a lot, so we've only seen him on a couple of occasions thus far. Sam Mather did actually train with us today. Very talented young boy. I think both the players are good young footballers. I think it's a bit of an eye-opener for them coming to train with us. We had a brief conversation about it earlier. Training with Man United and training with Rochdale are completely different. I think the circumstances alone, the facilities that they're training in, totally different. We're on totally different football pitches and whatnot. But I think what's been a bit of an eye-opener for the lads is the demands put on them by our team. I think training with under 18s and then training with men who want to win, who are in the middle of a five-a-side and will rip your head off if you're not tracking your man or tracking your runner, I think is a total new experience to them. So I think that's part of the work experience and that's good for them. And I think it will be a good experience for them in the main. I'm just hoping that we can have those guys a little bit more from Man United when they say we're free to do so. And at which point, you know, I would like and I would hope to see them in amongst our squads and involve them in some way, hopefully.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Well answered, Jim. Right, we're going to move just first on this table. If you'd like to ask a question of our head coach, raise your hand here. We're going to move down to this line here. Surely there's someone here who's got a question for Jim. This gentleman has it. I'll just pass the microphone over. If you just introduce yourself to Jim. Thank you.
Hi Jim, I'm Steve. Probably last year and towards the end of last year, I had no sort of empathy with the squad. I was sort of disillusioned with the squad. This year, you and the team's made me fall back in love with being Rochdale, being a Rochdale fan. First, I'd like to thank you for that. And secondly, just how have you done it?
No, Steve, genuinely, mate, I'm more thankful for you actually recognising that point than you being thankful to me for trying to achieve that. But we spoke when we did this at the start of the season, and I told you truthfully I had no idea how it was going to go, but ultimately all I wanted to achieve was a better culture in the changing room that I was in than when I left it officially as a player. And I understand what you're saying, I do, and I think it's regularly tagged on teams and changing rooms up and down the country that the fans don't feel like their team is fighting for them or representing them. I said in one of my post matches just recently, giving up is a strange thing. We don't always think we're doing it, but sometimes we are. Sometimes we don't even know we're doing it. We can't arrest the slide when we're in the middle of doing it, but I think sometimes we feel hopeless, careless, and other words as such. And I think the team got to a place over certainly the last couple of years, whereby I don't even think it knew where it was, and it was almost sleepwalking. And there was some issues in that changing room from a culture perspective that just didn't sit well with me. And I felt like the football will be the football, no matter what. However we play, whether you love it, you hate it, styles, it's all just subjective. It's all just opinion. It's all one aspect. But the most important aspect for me was, will the team represent the right values again and fight in every single moment? And I think there's been all sorts of different performances this season. I think there's been brilliant moments, rubbish moments, moments in between, and there's been all sorts of circumstances around the football club, as you know. But I feel that there's never been a moment when the team has not given everything. And I think Steve probably, I don't know everyone in the room, but maybe I'm being, maybe I should be careful when I say it, I don't know, but I think we're all working class people, and if you've gone beyond that and you're no longer working class, then well done to you, and I hope you're enjoying financial freedom, I really do. But me, the team, and I think a lot of you guys in here can relate to good, honest, working class values. And I don't know if we've even done it, but you asked me how we've done it, and I think it's just those values. I think it's just going out and trying to give you all maximum return in every moment, and that has to be at a bare minimum with effort. And in everything else, He's just a bonus, and I think this team this year has give everything in what I must say is some of the most difficult circumstances I've ever seen. So I think though what mustn't be underestimated is your part in it. You've been amazing. You've been amazing too. Like collectively, the support you've given us in the tough moments when we've really, really needed it, it's more valuable than you ever know. So I think the thank you goes both ways, Steve.
Thanks for the answer, and like I say, I think certainly for myself, we can forgive mistakes, we all make mistakes, but the guys never give up, and if they make a mistake, if they do something, you know, they're fighting for Dale, as we all are, and it really does show, so thank you very much.
Cheers, Steve.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thanks once again to Jim. Right, anybody on this row, would you like to raise your hand? If you'd like to ask a question about head coach on this chap here, just introduce yourself to Jim if you could, and fire your question.
Hi Jim, I'm Sean. So I came to the one at the start of the season where you mentioned, is it Pat Lane, where
yeah.
we're bringing the youth team into the same training area as the first team.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, has that had the positive effects that you were hoping for?
Yeah, good question, Sean. It has, without doubt. I think that's certainly one answer I can definitely commit to with conviction. That I think I maybe worded it at the time, if only one thing comes from my tenure at the football club, like as the head of the football club, that we reunited first team with academy, all working as a collective again, unified, playing in one style, then that would probably be the most important thing that I ever do. We don't train on the same site every single day, but we managed to achieve it guaranteed now 1 day a week. So for at least 1 day a week, the young pros and the next generation at this football club, which we've done amazing over the years at, by the way. We've been one of the bravest clubs around, constantly exposing young players who've gone on and had fantastic careers. And, you know, it's a model that's been very good for this football club. That came from working together, being unified. And I thought unifying the two sides of the football club, as I said, was one of the most important things that we should address first and foremost. We are now on the same site 1 day a week at a minimum, and regularly now the young players are training with the first team in and out on merit. So I'll have a conversation with the youth team coaches every single week about how they're doing, how their game went at the weekend, who's deserving of a spot in the first team squad. Not just from my eyes when I see them, but also from the youth team coaches who genuinely is giving their all, who genuinely is trying to be a professional footballer for Rochdale Football Club. And for those young players, they now get to walk in amongst the same corridors as the actual pros who are doing it, who are there already, and just things like good manners, like walking past each other and saying good morning. Like, honestly, those sort of things get lost when the two teams train on a different site, but regular, normal values and normal manners, they go a long way. They end up somehow on the football pitch. They genuinely do. I believe that. Good people make good things happen on a football pitch, and I think the young guys being around the pros are picking up on that, and it's a definite positive change.
Thank you so much, Sean, for your question. Thank you, Jim, for the answer. Anyone here got a question on this row? Surely one of you chaps has got a question for Jim. Here we go. Just introduce yourself to Jim if you could, please, and he'll answer your question.
Hi mate, my name's Aidan. Just a genuine question about the football club going forward. With a positive news, what's your plans going forward with the club after this potential investment going forward this season to next?
Apologies, I never caught your name there, sorry. Aidan. Truthfully, Aidan, I've no idea. I've no idea whatsoever. The news is almost, but not quite, but almost as new to me as it is to you. One thing I've learned over the course of this season is that if I try to help or expose myself in every single area of the club, and then I don't have the right energy for the team. And I feel like my focus has to be on the team and the players we've got, the squad we've got, anything I can do to help what's happening on the football pitch, and let these guys take care of the future of the football club's hands, really, because it's no expertise of mine. It's not nothing I can offer any help in, really. But if you're asking me simply as a Rochdale fan, I simply hope that, you know, whatever this new investment means, it means a healthy injection of cash. Let's have it right. A healthy injection of cash straight into the football club, straight into the team, straight into the infrastructure, and more crucially, that the right people are at the football club, hopefully myself included, to positively direct that injection into the right places, into the most important things, because we've all seen many cases before where cash can be wasted. Cash can be really wasted at football clubs if it's not directed in the right way. So hopefully just all-round improvements, and probably, even saying that, I'm probably going too far because I know nothing really.
Thank you anyway, nice one.
Aidan, thank you for your question, and a very honest answer from Jim there as well, so thank you. I'll just ask somebody on here, just make way on here first of all. On this road, would you like to ask a question to Jim? There we go, this chap's got a question. Just introduce yourself to Jim, please.
Hi Jim, my name's John. Firstly, thanks for everything you've done. Like Steve said, my faith in this club's been restored this season. I don't know whether this is the right question for you, Jim, to be honest, but earlier on in the season we brought an organisation in to help with recruitment and other things like that, and I've not heard much of them just lately. I'm just wondering whether they're still involved and how much help they've been to you.
Yeah, so I think that is a question for me, I think. Yeah. So the company MRKT, I think you're referring to, the data company. Yeah. They are still on the scene, kind of. We kind of paused our usage of them. Is that the right word to use, Simon? Yeah. We've been working with MRKT up until the last couple of months, but obviously, as you guys know, and you've seen released in the most recent times, is we've been in a bit of financial difficulty, and I think MRKT, along with many other things behind the scenes, have had to be stripped so that we can run as efficiently as possible to survive, to be honest. And I would say there's no end of agreement with MRKT at the moment. We were using their services and we were operating healthily together. I would say MRKT were helping us identify targets, identify players to their best knowledge of how they thought we would want them. Sometimes it works great, other times it doesn't. I think it's like a lot of things. No single way is ever the only way, and I found that I begun to use the data company in different ways that I thought would be helpful for the team. So recovering stats, data on other teams we were about to play. It wasn't always just recruitment, but of course when the football club, as you know, has not had a huge or any amount of money to spend during the season, once we've reached our limit of spending, recruitment becomes a little bit abundant or redundant, sorry, rather than abundant, redundant, definitely redundant. Recruitment becomes redundant when you don't necessarily have money to spend on players. So yeah, we try to utilise them in other ways, and truthfully, I found the data company helpful throughout my time, and if it was something we could keep up, I'm certainly sure that they could be useful. But if the football club decided we were no longer to be in a partnership with them, it is what it is.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, John. Anyone in this section of the room? We're going to come to this chap in a minute. Anyone in here would like a question to our head coach? Got any questions here? Is the question that you was going to ask? Anything else you'd like to ask for Jim? No? Okay. Anybody here at the back of the room your opportunity to put your question to Jim McNulty. We've got a chap here. Was that a hand up? No? Yeah, fantastic. Just introduce yourself, Jim, if you could, please.
Hi, I'm Richard. Just following on from that point, are we doing any scouting at all or doing any planning towards next season at the moment?
Hi Richard, yeah, thanks for your question, mate. Yes is the simple answer. I feel in a completely different place to where I was at the end of last season. At the end of last season, I didn't know whether I'd have this job. Obviously, I took it on an interim or caretaker basis till the end of the season, and couldn't truthfully operate as the club's manager because I never knew if I was going to be it. So that was a difficult time, and I would say we certainly missed out last season on our timing, which I don't feel like was anyone's fault, if I'm being honest. Sometimes the circumstances just are the circumstances, and if you've got no certain parameters to work to, and we never have as a football club last summer, then we couldn't move in any direction. And by the time I was appointed, I would say we'd missed the first influx of positive signings that we would have been at least at the negotiating table for. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still more than happy with the recruitment that did take place, but I would like to be ahead of it come next season. And in answer to your question, yes, I've been looking, I've been trying to learn regularly about this division, about the divisions below, about what's going on above, and I think just this year I've been able to operate more like the leader of the club that's actually trying to build something longer term than just not knowing what's going to happen after the next 6 weeks. So the data company will certainly be helpful in that, and we'll be able to identify exactly what we're looking for and what we want earlier, and hopefully be at the negotiating table in the first round of negotiations when everybody's available.
Thank you, Richard. Great question. Another great answer from Jimmy. Steve, you've got a question that you'd like to ask to Jim McNulty.
Hi, Jim. Just a very quick one. How much notice were we given that Louis Molden will leave in the club?
Hi, Steve. Yeah, a couple of hours, basically, is the answer. We were in regular communication with Wolves all through the month because it was something I was mindful that could happen, of course. So we were identifying targets, but as the month ticked on, it seemed, and the assurances came from Wolves that nothing was going to happen. They were more than happy for him to continue his development here. They felt that he was in the best place for him, and I have to agree, and I still do agree. Even if Louis has forged his way into a League One team and is playing some regular football now, I still feel like what he was doing here and what the stats sheets were starting to look like for him as a young English goalkeeper were looking very healthy. It was painful one, with 24 or 12 hours left to go in the window when they reneged on what they said was the original agreement, and Louis was going to be leaving us. But as I've always known, but as I've more harshly learned this season as the manager, these things happen in football, and unless things are written, unless things are solid, you just truly never know. But Louis, we got to a point, I won't lie, where with a week to go, regularly speaking to his agent, regularly speaking to Wolverhampton Wanderers, I confidently thought Louis was going to be our goalkeeper till the end of the season. When Louis called me late one night to say he wasn't going to be, yeah, I won't tell you what the first few words were that I said on that phone call, but it was a surprise. I was disappointed, but like I say to the team all the time, the next moment's the most important moment, and truthfully the only moment that does matter. And yeah, when I got over my initial disappointment and anger, I moved on to the next moment, and we now have a different goalkeeper who we're pleased with.
Thank you. Hope that answers your question there, Steve. Any of you chaps at the bar here, put your hand up if you'd like to ask Jim a question. Otherwise, I'll make my way back up the room here. We're going to go along this line here, and on this table here. Would you like to ask a question of Jim? Yeah, just please introduce yourself, and Jim will answer your question.
Hi Jim, my name's James. During the recent financial hardship, the fans have really rallied together for the Squad Builder Fund and very good attendances home and away. I just want to know how much that means to you and the team.
It's immense. It's immense. I'll probably struggle to articulate how important any sort of positive rallying that fans do, that our fans do for our team, transfers into energy and effort in my changing room, on my training ground, Monday to Friday. Trust me, like, they feel more than you feel. They know more than you know. They pick up on things more than you know. And I know that firsthand from when I was in there with them. And I said recently again, some of the moments that I went through with you guys on the pitch for Rochdale, highs and lows, I feel like we're sharing and feeling everything together. So if I asked those guys to put their hands in their pocket for something, and they rallied round and they gave something for someone, it would be for a good cause to them. It would mean a lot to them, and I think they would appreciate the value and the power and the effort and energy and the care that's gone into that. And I think they do with the squad builder, with the fans turning up, with the positive support. I said in a post-match, one of the recent games at home, and I can't actually remember which one, it wasn't a positive result. It was either a narrow loss or a draw. I can't remember the actual outcome of that game. But I said, tonight, the fans sung constantly from a moment where there was no real reason to, there was no positive score. We may have been pushing, we were working hard, which I do hope always is enough to keep the fans singing, because if it isn't, what are we doing it for? But it was like a European night. Crown Royal was like a European night. It was unbelievable. There was a song that got sung constantly. It must have went on for about 27 minutes. I was thinking, where's the oxygen coming from? But honestly, moments like that, you don't realise what it feels like. To me, stood in the technical area, hearing it, hearing the constant support, knowing how much that transfers to the team, it's magical, I promise you. I'm all for being a motive with the team, and I've no qualms being a motive and hearing from you guys, but truthfully, it's amazing. All that stuff's amazing, and it transfers into the team.
Thank you. Another great question, another great answer. Anybody on this table here? We've got one of our younger fans here. Would you like to ask a question of Jim? Go on then, just give us an introduction if you could, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom. I was just wondering how you'd assess the season so far, what's happened on and off the pitch.
Simon, it's been a crazy one, hasn't it? Do you know what? There's been loads of moments that have made me smile. There's been loads of goals, team moments. I love things like 3 blocks in a row in front of your goalkeeper when the other team think they're going to score and you manage to repel that moment. There's been loads of small defining moments that I look for in games when I think, that's a brilliant sign, that's a brilliant sign, that's a brilliant sign. Truthfully, I think this season will be remembered for everything that went on off the football pitch. I've no idea what will go on, or how we'll finish up. I've felt that all along, as much as I think everyone in this room, everyone here sat alongside me as well, has ultimately done nothing but try the best for Rochdale Football Club. We have suffered hardships and difficulties this season that I've just never been through. I've just never ever been through. And as the person that the team now come to say, I'm worried about my finances, or we've not been paid, can I leave, or our agent's calling me, this club want that player, this club want our player. wives, family members, genuinely concerned about what the financial hardship means for their budget sheet at home. And I feel like when I sum up the season, I think how the players have continued to give unreal effort game in, game out, no matter what the scoreline was, in these circumstances, I think that's ultimately what I remember about the season. Not so much this game, that game, great result, negative result, more so, wow, what a foundation to start from. If we get everything going in the right direction, if we quiet all the noise and turn Rochdale Football Club just back into a football club, then what a platform to start from. I think that's what this season is.
Can I just say what a great question from one of our younger fans here tonight. It is great to see a lot of our younger supporters here tonight because you guys are the lifeblood of this club. So a great question, Tom. Thank you so much. Did Jim answer that for you? Was that a good answer? Thanks. Well done, Jim. Right, we're going to go across here now. Do you got anybody here? Would you just like to raise your hand if you've got a question for Jim? Here we go. Just give yourself an introduction, please.
Right, Jim, David. Really pleased with the performance of George Nevitt this season. Who's the next George Nevitt?
Yeah, David, thanks. Good question, mate. For the record, I'm really pleased with the performances of George Nevitt, and I'll share a secret with you. When some friends of mine who are also successful current and past EFL managers seen that we were starting George Nevitt, first game of the season this year, live on TV. Yeah, people thought we were crazy, but it was one of the first steps in returning us to what we've always been. It was a kid on the training ground who knew no fear at the time, had no idea I was thinking of playing him, was probably why he was fearless, but was expressing a confidence and an ability that, without any arrogance whatsoever, he was ready to take a first team shirt. And I thought, yeah, wow, how exciting, let's just do it. And I felt some of the risks, I felt some of the fears that probably everyone else did. I heard some of the reactions to, you're starting a 17-year-old the first day in the National League against that big fella playing up front for them, are you sure? And I thought, he's ready. He's been training at a level that I thought, the kid's ready. He played a pre-season game at Walsall, I thought was the defining one. He handled Jamie O'Matt really well, who I played against personally, and I felt the power of playing against Jamie O'Matt before, and he gave me a few stressful days and a broken nose as well, I think, one time. And George handled him beautifully, and I just thought it was right in terms of purely deserving to start, and I also felt there was just a bigger picture feel to it. I felt like I can't talk all this and not live it. I can't say I'm going to unite this club with the academy and not live it when there's a moment that presents itself like that. So on George Nevitt, yeah, truthfully delighted with him. Turned 18 the other week. Amazing that he's only 18 with some of the maturity he's shown. Have some of his areas that he could improve, areas that he could strengthen, been shown on the pitch. Yeah, they have. But that's the place they should do. That's the ultimate test out there in front of all you guys. But yeah, on him, really happy with how he's handled himself this season. Who the next one is, it's tough. It's really tough. I think there's a couple showing green shoots, promising signs as young football players. I'm a bit hesitant to mention single names because I don't want to dishearten any of the other guys from trying their best also. Me naming 2 or 3 players now might dishearten 2 or 3 others, and I don't want to do that. But there are a couple that are training with us now every single day at my instruction, for what I see in my eyes. And there's a couple more that I hope can also make the jump as well. But yeah, really good place and there's some good players there.
Thanks for your question, Dave. This chap here has a question. Just going back to George Nevitt, obviously Jim alluded to the point when he took the shirt on the opening game against Ebbsfleet. Let's not forget that pass he gave to Carol Mitchell as well in front of the TV cameras against Chesterfield. Great potential and a great servant to the club. Right, we've got a chap here who's got a question for you, Jim, here. Just introduce yourself, please.
Hiya, Jim, Pete Woodhouse. On a similar subject to the last question, what's the situation with the young lad, our very own Sadio Mane, who apparently has been training at Southampton?
Good knowledge, he has indeed, yeah. Mane's a talent. Mane's a real talent. I was obviously instructed to have a look at him, and we had him come to the first team on one of his days off school, and he didn't do loads, I'll tell you the truth, he didn't do loads on the day, but he did look about this big, you know, compared to the pros. But he just shown a couple of moments and thought, oh yeah, I can see what you're talking about. So we put him on our bench for one of the games. It was after that week he trained with us twice. He's shown real exciting ability for the future. Maybe not right here, right now, plays every week. No chance, not at all. But real exciting ability, and I think in and around that time he also played some games for our youth team against some of the biggest clubs in our country, and yeah, he lit up the pitch on those nights, I believe. And I think with the conversations that some of these big clubs have been having with us, with George, with Simon, there's a couple of things really. We'd be foolish not to at least listen and entertain those conversations based on what it could mean for the football club financially, and also for the young player. Like he's having some sort of dream opportunities. I think there's Southampton, I think Wolverhampton Wanderers, Crystal Palace. There's been a number of clubs ring up about young Mane, and yeah, he's having a look around, I think.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the question. Just across this line here, on this table here, got a question for Jim. If not, we'll move forward here on this table to my left. Would anyone want to raise their hand for a question for Jim? Here we go. Just introduce yourself, please, if you could.
Hi, Jim. It's Nick. I think probably everyone's got the same opinion. Thanks a lot for giving up your time tonight. I think we're all really grateful of how open everybody's been, especially under the recent difficult circumstances. So myself as a fan, I'm sure everybody else is really grateful for that.
Thanks, Nick.
I'm going to be cheeky and ask two questions. First one, I think you've been in the job almost 12 months if you take into your interim role into account. What's the biggest thing that you've learned as the first team manager? And my second question is, what do you think we need to do with the playing squad we've got at the moment to maybe change, improve and get up the league, hopefully, for the remainder of the season?
Good couple of questions, Nick, yeah. Biggest thing I've learned? I don't know the single biggest thing, I just know that there's been so much exposure to new learning. I think this season, I know my title is head coach. I know we changed from manager to head coach, and the intricate details of that are supposed to mean something different. But I would say this year I've had kind of experience of being a head coach, a manager, a sporting director, a scout, you know, a shoulder to cry on, a psychologist, all sorts of things really. And I think obviously in some way I've had to detach or slightly move away from the changing room. I can no longer be a player in that changing room. Of course I can't, it's not right, because I've got to have the most serious conversations with our players. I've got to be the ones that, you know, makes people fall in line when I feel like they're out of it. I've got to be the one that constantly pushes, drives them, sometimes critiques them, and also nail them. If they're doing anything wrong in that training, I've got to nail them. I have to. But I think maybe what I've learned the most is that I can do that with them, rather than have that situation where you lose them. And I've been in there before where you can lose them by doing the wrong things. I think not just myself, I set the tone, I set the style, I set the leadership, I set the culture, but then there's probably a group of 5, 6, 8, whatever it may be, of like real cultural architects who then operate that changing room, those corridors, every one of those sessions for all the things that I don't see. I think some of my biggest learning has been that I have to empower them to take ownership of all of this, so they feel like it's their team. It's not just they play for me because we've employed them and they do what I say. No, I want them to feel like you feel, like this is their team. So the ownership of it all really does connect with them. So every moment really does connect with them. I think I'm a big fan of All Black culture. I don't know if any of you guys have read Legacy in the room, but I think so much of the stuff in that sort of field, when I read it, it really resonates with me. And I feel like that kind of leadership, where you give them ownership of the leadership, provided they're doing the right thing, has been some of my biggest learning this year, to trust them, empower them, and give the team back to them, so they play for this as much as we want them to play for this, if that makes sense. In terms of question 2, I'm really happy with them. Like, I love the team. I love them because they give me maximum effort every single day. I'm constantly thinking about how we can improve, and obviously that comes with recruitment. It does. You look for qualities all the time that you don't have, but circumstantially we are also limited. So sometimes I think it's a wasted focus. Why not just focus in my entirety on the players we've got right now, and then if and when the football club arrives in a healthier state, we can look how we evolve this. But I don't forget, although I always remain hope, I always have aspirations and excitement about what we could achieve, and try and project that onto the team constantly. I don't forget what the objective was at the start of the season, and the objective was stabilising the club, not being a York City or a Scunthorpe who go down and down again, not being Stockport County who go down and down again, because once you're cascading down, it's hard to arrest the slide. And I think what we've done this season is arrest the slide, certainly in your mood, I think. And our players this year have commented to me, to each other in changing room, that they're coming to a stadium now where they feel support. That's a difference maker. That's a complete difference maker. And I felt like to try and achieve anything beyond that this season would have been complete overachievement. But I won't lie, I still want complete overachievement. I still want to win 10 out of our next 12 games and get in the playoffs. Of course I do.
Thank you, Nick. Two questions for the price of one there, Nick, and well answered to Jim. I'm going to come across to this table here. If there's anyone who'd like to answer a question to Jim here, just put your hand in the air. You have a question this gentleman has? If you just give yourself an introduction, please, if you could.
David, I'd like to know, can our loan players be called back during this part of the season, or are they here till the end? And if we do get to the playoffs, can we keep them? Because it's going to go on.
So every loan is different, right, George? Every loan is different. Unfortunately, some loans can be recalled after 28 days. Yes. Actually, I'm best passing to George here.
So, yeah, not to bail Jim out on this one. Yeah, they're all different. If you're a goalkeeper, you can be recalled at any time. Hence, so Louis Molden, for example, whilst it was in the window, if we'd have got past the window and who knows, Wolves could have had 2 or 3 injuries, they could have still recalled him and we'd have to have done something about it. If we've got someone on a season-long loan, they typically can't be recalled outside.
Go back and not play and sit there idle. Oh, that was difficult to take, but that's the situation we're in ultimately. It follows on from some of the previous questions perfectly. Nobody wanted Keane, nobody. Keane's a free loan. He was a player that no one wanted, and we seen him, and I thought he could be special for us. And I think I've thanked a couple of clubs recently in post-match. I think it's fair. I think Fleetwood, Bolton, Burnley, no, not Burnley, Blackpool, sorry. All our neighbours really have helped us out. I think in our hour of need, and we have been in our hour of need this year, free loans have kind of been a massive part of our season for a squad that for the most part up until right now was threadbare, completely threadbare, playing players out of position all the time. But then there's always the risk with free loans that you don't necessarily have the strongest hand at the table, so you can't say, can I have this player for free, and by the way, you're not having him back if you want him. It's pretty much like, yeah, I'll just take whatever you can I just have him? Yes. And obviously the parent club just controls the power, which I think is right. But yeah, I think the football family this year has definitely warmed my heart in that we've put, well, the football family and some of these clubs have put the players before the finances, which I think has really helped Rochdale Football Club out this year. If we're to achieve anything this year, and how we've had to work in that basis, when you look down the road there and them guys are signing striker after striker for thousands.
People have seen you transition, come into the club, go through a player up to where you are now, yeah? And it's recognised from me that you've re-registered yourself from a player perspective, just in case, yeah? Are we going to see you before the end of the season in a Rochdale kit so we can chant you? Come on, are you getting boots on or not?
Rick, I hope for your sake you never have to see that again. Because I don't think many of you will be renewing your season tickets. I started training with the team in that time and I was miles off it. So that was total last resort stuff. But at the time was something that I gave genuine consideration to, because we were at the depths of despair. Yeah. Yeah. I was, yeah, of course. I probably tried to give the same service that any of you would. I think any of you would register yourselves in a heartbeat if you could, or needed to. I'm too fat. Yeah, and I'm too slow. So I don't know. I highly doubt you'll get to see me. Hopefully the team's sake and for our season ticket sales sake next year. No, you shouldn't get to see me.
Come and get what you deserve, yeah, because the fans will applaud you, yeah.
Cheers, Rick, I appreciate
You
that.
can still chant, Rick, whether Jim's coaching or Jim's on the pitch. You can still relatively shout to every game. Right, a couple more questions to go, because we do need to go into a break. First of all, over to Tom. You've got a question for Jim.
So just going back to Tuesday night, particularly the first 45 minutes, is some of the best football I've seen here in years. Just absolutely phenomenal. But if at the end of last season you told me 2 of our best players would be Cameron John and Damani Mellor, I'd have kind of been a bit surprised. Tuesday night they were both on fire, they were combining together, they were working so well together. Really, really impressive performances. And those are 2 players who've probably come in from a lot of flack from the fans, me included. I was wondering what you saw in both of them and how you've got that onto the pitch, given that they maybe didn't have the best reputation amongst the fans at one point.
Yeah, good question, good honest question, and a very truthful one of circumstances that I am aware of, hyper aware of, because as I said in the previous question before, they feel everything, and so when they're not supported, or dare I even say it, disliked, it's not nice for them. It's not nice for them, and it's something that I'm never comfortable with. It's something that I don't like. I like us to support all of them. I feel like, I hope that whether we get it right or wrong, I hope that you trust me in my decisions, that I'm only picking good people who will try the ultimate best for you. I think Damani Miller and Cameron John give absolutely everything, and they do it every single day in training, and you just know if they go onto the pitch for us, they'll do the same. Whether it'll go right or wrong, they'll do the same. I think there's been others. I think the skipper, I think there's some feelings I picked up towards the end of last season here that they never sat comfortable with me because I played alongside him. I knew what he was about. You know, I knew that everything about him from the inside out was good, and all he had to be was utilised correctly. Just utilised correctly. I think Damani, Cameron John, Ebanks, others. I think I'm really glad they've stepped up to the platform to have the possibility to show you guys that they're willing to like die for the shirt. And I think Rochdale fans are responsive to honesty, and I think when they show that honesty, when they get slapped in the face on the pitch but they get straight back up and run hard to go and try and take that ball back again, I think you respond. I think Tuesday night was electric, and I think those two players amongst others were a massive part in that. I'm glad that was received and felt, but yeah, I think as long as they start from a good place and we show belief in them, hopefully they can give a good return on that, and you'll get to see the kind of players and people they are in every moment.
Super answer, Jim, and thank you, Tom, for your question. Two more quick questions. I'm just conscious we're into added time already for the first half, so we've got two more questions for Jim. So first of all, you want to just introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Jim, it's Matt. At the beginning of the season, you mentioned about how you were, the style of football, you're looking at total options. You mentioned total options. There's some fans, perhaps, just a few, still think we only play one way. How do you think that's evolved over the season? And how would you describe the way that we play at the moment? And also, can I just say that whatever happens at this football club going forward, whoever takes over, whatever goes forward, is that there is only one person who represents this club properly as a manager and as a human being, and I think it's you.
That's amazing of you to say. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. As I've always said, any support and all of your support is it's massive. It's amazingly received, and yeah, it does nothing but help me and the team. So thank you for that. Total options is a tag that I think I probably kind of used loosely after maybe my first or second game, and it kind of stuck. I've got no problem with it sticking because I use it with the team. I believe in it. All I would say is, in terms of one-dimensional football, you can't play total options when you've got no options. And I think this season, at times, we've had no options, none. So you've seen this year when we played full-backs up front. Harvey Gilmore's played on the wing, Harvey Gilmore's played up front, Ryan East played on the wing, Ryan East played up front, Jimmy Kay's played absolutely everywhere, Cameron Johns played central midfield. And just in some moments, I have been a victim of feeling sorry for myself. I've sat at home sometimes, just for moments, and felt a little bit sorry for myself and thought, sometimes you need a centre forward to look like a centre forward. You need a winger to look like a winger. You need a centre midfielder to look like a central midfielder. But again, I've always gone back to how hard every single player has tried, no matter what position they've played, knowing that they don't necessarily look great playing there. I think in the brief moments we've had genuine competition and genuine availability on all the positions on the pitch, like Tuesday night really, and the kind of front line, how it looked the other night, I think you do actually get the option of total options. You do get to see what the other team don't want you to do, or what the other team is giving you, and you can expose it. But when when you're playing half complemented or when you're playing with serious numbers down or serious people out of position, you look like it sometimes. You really, really do. And again, I still think it's a testament to the team, the group, and you guys that we've managed to maintain or attain the points that we've got so far. I hope moving forward that the squad can have real healthy options so we can see much more of total options. That's my hope.
Great answer. We're into added time. So the final question for Jim tonight is going to be down to you, Mark, if you want to ask Jim your question.
Cheers, thanks. It's back to a football related one. Can you tell me why you've got your goalkeeper warming up while he's still eating his breakfast? He comes out and warms up early every match now and goes back in again. And then the rest of the team come out. It's something that I've never seen before. Is there a reason behind it, or?
Okay.
I've picked up on it. So
Yeah. Tiernan warms up really early, doesn't he?
Some weeks we
Yeah.
get here early, so we can have a drink. We come in.
Yeah.
He's already done and off the pitch.
Louis didn't. Yeah. I mean, keepers sometimes are nutcases.
He comes out with a bowl of porridge sometimes. Is that early, Jim?
Yeah. Some keepers genuinely are just a balmy, like completely balmy. Tiernan, from the second I shook his hand after trying to sign him and I brought him in, I thought, he's nuts. Like, I can see he's got that in him. He's got that neurotic side that sometimes goalkeepers have. And Tiernan wants to warm up really early, but he's insistent, and that's what's best for him. Probably answers the question earlier, what have you learned? Sometimes you've learned that if they're happy, we might just get a happy outcome. So I think if I'm to say to Tiernan, no, you're not warming up, you go out at this time because that's the way you do it, maybe I'm just shooting myself in the foot. Maybe I'm affecting the, you know.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, it's just so unusual.
Yeah.
Because you go and warm up, you come in, get changed, you come back out still relatively warm, where he's coming out like he's been in the fridge again.
Yeah, Chris Dixon, our goalkeeper coach, actually after the game the other day was saying that exact point, and we discussed it, and how he's never worked with a goalkeeper that wants to go out as early as Tiernan. I don't think he comes in earlier than other keepers come in previously, but I think he goes out way earlier.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, keepers are nuts, aren't they?
Just very, very, very quick, the last one is, I think what you were saying about the fans and that tonight, you'll get out of all of us what we feel the team are putting in. Last year at times was pitiful. We went to a couple of away games where it was dire. We play away before Stockport.
Before Stockport?
Yeah, we needed to win. And we lost 2-0 away. Crawley.
Oh, that wasn't before Stockport, that was way before Stockport, wasn't it? Do you mean before Stockport at home or Stockport away?
Yeah, Stockport away when we got relegated.
When the team went down to Crawley.
And there was players that were laughing, and their attitude was just terrible. And that's when you get the fans and people turn, because like you said, you know, some of us are working class.
Yeah.
And to have that frustration of not only have you put a bad performance in when it matters, and the amount of time we all said last season, we've got to turn it around next week, we've got to turn it around next week. The difference this season is that we can see, as frustrated as we are, we've just had 6 weeks without a win, but you can see there's an effort there. You always get rewarded for that.
Yeah.
So long as that carries on. What you won't get rewarded for is people coming out that we think are stealing a living, shall we say.
Yeah.
I used to say that about Mr. Ball when he played for us last season, that he was stealing a living as a footballer, because I've never rated him. But there was a lot of them last season that we thought stole a living, and they weren't putting the effort in, which translates into the fans then, and then the whole atmosphere of the club, the whole demeanour is different. Whereas this season, the culture's different, so you've got everybody behind you.
Yeah,
I think part of your job is not only to pick the team, but it's to keep that momentum going, so you keep the fans happy.
Yeah. I'm not too sure you actually asked me a question then.
I'll tell you what, Jim, thank you very much for all you've done.
What I would say in answer to your point rather than your question is, I think, styles and performances and all that, they're going to change. They're going to change all the time. But I think that ethic is the most important thing. The culture and ethic is the most important thing. If you could tell me that you'll forgive performance as long as you're seeing maximum effort. I hope the culture of the group, anyone I ever bring in, and each person that, you know, I don't choose to keep, will constantly work on that culture. And I think all this season, I think every single game you've seen a team that's give everything. And in my time, I think it's probably the number one thing that I'll always try and look after.
Superb. Ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation to our head coach, Mr. Jim McNulty. I think you can see around the room, Jimmy, the opinion and what these fans think of you as our head coach. What a guy. Always gives you an honest answer, Jim. It might not be the answer you want to hear, but you'll get an honest answer from Jim McNulty, Rochdale Football Club's head coach, Jim McNulty. Right, we're just going to take a short 10-minute break. We are a little bit behind time at the moment. In the second half of the Fans Forum, you will get your chance to ask your questions to the remaining panellists tonight. And at the end of the evening as well, we have some questions from members of the Dale Supporters Trust who are not here this evening. So we'll see you back here in 10 minutes' time properly. Thank you. But we do need to now move on with the second half of tonight's fans forum. So we've got 5 more panellists left who are going to answer your questions. We'll sweep the room as usual, and then someone will take the microphone. So we've got Murray Knight, we've got Richard Knight, Simon Gage, Tony Potney and George Dell. So we're going to start. Let's just have another round of applause for the panel tonight, please. Right, once again, we're going to start on this side of the room. Obviously, the first half was football related. I suspect there may be 1 or 2 non-football related questions. If you've got a question for the panel this evening, please raise your arm in the air on this table first of all. No one on this table. We'll move down to the next table here. Just one second. We're going to go this way, so if we can, then we'll come to you. On this table here, anyone like to ask a question of the panel this evening? Okay, you sure? Right, next table here. Surely someone on this table has got a question here. If you can just introduce yourself, and then someone on the panel will answer your question. Thank you.
Hi, Vince. When you're in these discussions with prospective buyers, is there any talks as to what's going to happen with the current board once takeover takes place?
The process that you follow is generally that
Is there anybody here who would like to ask a question? We've got 5 people on the panel this evening. Surely someone's got a question. I've got a chap in the corner here, right in the corner. If you just want to introduce yourself to the panel, and we'll have your question.
I'm Paul. If the deal goes through, obviously we won't be... How long will it take for the deal to go through? Because you gave a limit of March when we'd have to go into liquidation. If the deal doesn't go through till, say, September, who's going to fill that breach with the money? Will they?
There's no answer to that. There's no reason why the deal shouldn't go through to by the end of March.
Okay.
If it's approved, if the resolutions that have been put to shareholders get approved at the EGM next week, actually it becomes a really simple transaction to do, because the shares are there owned by the club. Rather than doing loads and loads of different transactions, buying shares off loads and loads of different people, it's one very simple transaction from the club. There'll be an agreement, a purchase agreement, obviously, that outlines some legals that outline the terms of us selling those shares to these people. So there's no going back on it, but actually there's nothing to stop it happening really, really quickly, providing it gets approved at the EGM next week. If the EGM resolutions don't go through next week, then I don't know where the money's coming from at the end of the March as we sit here today, I'm afraid. But yeah, it's as clear as I can answer that, really.
Yeah, right. All right.
Thank you, Paul. Well answered by the chairman. Just going to put back of the room here. If you've got a question for the panel, you've got a question here, would you like to ask? For George, for Murray, for Richard, or for Simon? Tony, just one second. We'll just try the back of the room first there. These chaps here at the back, anyone would like to ask a question this evening? Otherwise, we'll make our way forward here. We've got a gentleman here who's got a question for the panel. Just introduce yourself, please, if you could.
Hi, my name's Dave. Assuming this deal does go through, there's going to be an injection of cash. I'm not sure how much cash that's going to equate to. What is that cash going to be used for? Is it going to be used to pay off any debts we've got, and then used to pay players' wages? And then where do we go from there? Because we know we've always struggled financially. Once we get that injection of cash, do we just we wipe the slate clean and then we carry on gradually going down again? How's that money going to be invested to make sure that that we're going forward with it?
No, I totally with you on that question, because exactly the questions we've been asking as we go through this, because the initial transaction will happen and that'll put £2 million into the football club. So the next question is, as I've stated publicly plenty of times, at the moment the club can't be run sustainably. It needs another revenue stream coming into the football club to make it survive. As
one of the fears is that if you've just got an investor that comes in, buys the club for £2 million, then leaves you to it, in 4 or 5 years, you're going to be in exactly the same position again, because the money just drips away. So I think the first part of that is it's not our decisions what they're going to do when they get control of the club and they put the £2 million in, but there are plans afoot, and it'll evolve. If I speak more generally, because it's very difficult for me to go into specifics in this particular deal, but more generally, revenue making ways. The first way is that we've got a fantastic ground here, we fully own it ourselves, and there are revenue generated real estate opportunities at this ground. For example, we could totally regenerate where we are now in the Ratcliffe. We could make it a 2-storey building. You've got opportunities to lease out the ground floor here to industry. Could be a gym, could be shops, could be kitchens, dentists, NHS. The council come and take it as offices for schooling or all sorts of things. And then we can have a massive function room upstairs that could hold 1,000 people. And that business model, if you like, would generate enough money probably to make the difference between the deficit at the moment and running sustainably. There's a whole academy piece as well that we need to look at, that within the academy that we've got now, are there opportunities for us to do education programs in there? Are there opportunities to bring overseas scholars over to come here where they'll pay money, so that becomes a cost neutral stroke money making opportunity for it. There's a community hub stroke training ground opportunity. So there's lots of opportunities that just need investment, and a lot of this investment we could, if we had a stable club, be able to borrow the money to do some of it ourselves as it was, but the problem is we've never had a stable football club to then have the foothold to go and do these other things. So I think there's exciting times ahead of us. There'll be lots of capital CapEx expenditure put in that will generate more money. We've talked about things in here, the dark kitchen generate another £70,000 a year, but we just haven't got the capital to put into the kitchens at the moment. So there's lots of opportunities here, and that's what attracts the investors. And then there's certain things that are just going to start creating more revenue as it is, and there'll probably be a question that Tony or Murray can answer before the evening's out on the lottery. We've finally got to a position where we can move on from our current lottery provider, and gives us a great opportunity now to start generating more revenue. So I think from our point of view on the sales pitch for the football club is that by maintaining the current playing budget, they may well want to increase that to fulfil their ambitions of going to the EFL, but we can operate on a relatively small deficit now because so much cost has been cut out of the business. And as we start generating more revenues now, you're not on a downward trend whereby your revenues are dropping, you can't keep your cost reductions up with it. We're now at the point where the costs are pretty much as low as we...
Thank you, Sam. We've got another chap here who's got a question for the panel.
It's Ian. Simon, you put a lot of money into the club. Will you be wanting to get your money out of the club now?
I certainly won't be wanting to write it off, no. But listen, part of the money that I put into the club is to keep the club here, to buy it time. But we always knew there was a buyer out there for us, an investor out there for us. It was just surviving long enough to be able to find that investor, and that's why I've put money in the club, because otherwise it's unthinkable what would have happened here. We've scrimped and scraved and done what we can to last to this point, and now it's the time to reap the benefit for that. But the beauty of the debt that the football club's got is that none of it's hostile debt, it's all friendly debt that myself, my family and the other people that are owed money to will come to an agreement, whatever suits the investor. It's certainly not a barrier to investment, so that'll be one of the things we talk about from now on forward as well.
Thank you so much, Simon. I think there's a quick follow-up question here.
Has this new organisation got deep pockets?
Time will tell on that one, I'm guessing. But yeah, I mean, they're coming in for £2 million to start with to buy those shares. so that's fairly deep pockets to start off with, but the ambitions of the group are very much football related. They've got significant plans on the football front, and that includes us going back up to the FL. So they know the budgets. They're football people. They know what they're doing. So I think, as I say, I think there's exciting times ahead for us. But hopefully soon, certainly the Dale Trust and then the wider fan base that are here this evening will have the opportunity to talk to them about their ambitions, and hopefully you'll be impressed as we have been.
Thank you, Simon. Mike, you have a question for the panel. If you'd like to ask your question, Mike.
Yeah, it's a simple question really. With regard to the vote, what is the feel at the moment? I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer if people who talk about the club, love the club, that it's got to be agreed. Is your feeling?
Well, to me, it's an absolute no-brainer as well. And we haven't all sat here and fought and made difficult decisions and suffered like everyone in this room suffered over the last 2-3 years to then just give up at the final hurdle. So we've found a structure that's attracted a buyer now. We've got to put all those conditions in place, and it also includes some political conversations and things like that to all come together. We're not over the line yet, there's still a lot of work to be done, but I hope that the vote isn't undone by conspiracy theories about one thing or another thing. It is a very simple choice. This is our only chance of survival, and I hope every shareholder thinks very carefully before casting their vote. And hey, listen, we've all been down this journey together. Everyone's suffered, everyone's been through hostile takeover and everything else, and this is a chance now to make a decision together that secures the future of the football club, and everyone should be very proud when that decision's made, and then enjoy what comes after that and what tomorrow brings, because at the minute I can't see a tomorrow, if I'm honest, if it doesn't go through.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for your question, Mike. We've got two chaps here with questions. First of all, Aidan has a question for the panel.
Hi, Simon. Genuine question. If the deal goes through next week, do you want to sit on the board if you get the option to?
I want to do whatever the investor wants. I don't want to put one single barrier in the way of this deal getting across the line. Now, if that involves me staying on the board, I'll happily stay and continue to volunteer my time to serve on that board and try and carry out whichever strategy the investors want. If they want a clean sweep and a totally different board, that suits me fine. I'll quite happily just have my season ticket and enjoy the football that Jim's producing on the pitch in the future.
Appreciate that.
Whatever happens, we mustn't put any barriers in the way of this deal going through.
All right, thank you, Simon. Nice one.
Thank you once again, Simon. Kieran, you have a question for the panel this evening.
Evening, Simon. Evening, Joel. Just a quick one. Are you aware of the different football clubs, after looking into today, that the prospective investors are involved in?
Yes, some of them. The wider group that haven't been made public yet are involved in other football teams as well. So, sort of trying to explain that they have a track record of being involved in football. We'll be the prize asset in the crown for them, because English football has a special appeal. It's, as we've seen the last week, we're sat in the 5th tier of English football and being on every newspaper, every website, every podcast going, it seems Rochdale's been mentioned. I think that's really brought home the power of football in this country, and that's why investors want to get involved in football in this country. So, yeah.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Kieran. Before we move forward, is there anybody at this back part of the room who has a question for somebody on the panel this evening? Otherwise, we'll make our way forward here. What about this corner here? Anybody here with a question for the panel this evening? If not, we'll go across to this middle table here. New chaps, got something you'd like to ask to anyone on the panel this evening? If not, we'll make our way further forward here. Next table, next line. Anyone here want to ask a question? Just raise your hand. Just remind us your name again. It's David, thank you.
Is keeping Jim as manager part of the deal?
Well, I think if there's some Americans watching this on YouTube this evening, I think they'll no doubt be very aware, as we've already told them, of the connection and how difficult it is. Listen, we've been through some managers over the last 2 or 3 years. It's really difficult to find someone that's a good cultural fit with a football club, and I think they recognise and we recognise that when you do that, you have to try and build something together. And tonight just goes to show there's a connection there, and that's the first building block that you need in achieving success. So I think it won't be our decision, but I think people will be very aware of that, and that'll be the way forward, I'm sure.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Dave, for the question. I think there's no doubt in this room this evening the groundswell of support we've all got for Jim, and a fantastic job. I'll just remind us of your name, please.
Yeah, my name's Steve. We've been waiting for decades to get a decent investor in. Should this go over the line? Thank you very much. Beyond the initial £2 million, is there any intention to invest any more in the club going forward? Will proof of funding be available to satisfy the requirements of the NFL and hopefully the EFL?
So the proof of, as directors of the company, we have to see proof of funds anyway. That's just due diligence. So within the National League, actually, there's not that many rules or proof or anything you need to do for them. The rules are very light at this level, but these have an online presence. They're not murky cows hiding in the corner, and all that due diligence is part of the process now. That happens over the next couple of weeks. We have a really close look at them. We examine what their business plans are. We come to an agreement on the deal, and they do the same with us. They go for everything with a fine-tooth comb, and that's kind of the process from this point forward. And hopefully once we're past the EGM and the resolutions get passed, then the deal, everyone can be happy and the deal will be completed soon after that.
Yeah, I'll be voting for it next week, no danger. We've just got to be a bit careful though, haven't we? Who is still under sanction of a possible points deduction if the share transactions aren't carried out properly?
That's an EFL rule, and I think it probably expired now. It's 2 years suspended, I think. But so I don't think we can fall foul of that one. But everyone's concerns on that point of view are totally legitimate, and we have to be careful. But we'll comply. We're very careful with all the rules, and we're aware of all the rules, and we'll comply with all the rules. The problem last time was that we weren't aware of transactions taking place, and therefore we fell foul of the rules without even knowing anyone was breaking the rules. If people understand that riddle.
Yeah. Right, we've got a few more questions on this table. First of all, it's over to Rick with your question, Rick.
Cheers, thank you. In light of the announcement yesterday, yeah, some Dale Trust votes have been against, etc. What do you want to do? 1, 2, 3, 4, or nothing? Yeah. In light of the announcements today, is that going to be reset? Because new sort of news, if that makes sense, Murray. Yeah. Should that be reset? If that makes sense, should. Yeah.
Well, I can answer that by saying that, first of all, go back to the actual prospective investors and the due diligence. The Trust have already done some due diligence on the investor that's now actually done the letter of intent, and there are absolutely no red flags. Now, that's not true.
No, Murray, sorry, you're missing the point, yeah? We've already voted via the Dale Trust. Do you agree to 1, 2, 3, 4 or nothing? Yeah? And an email that came out last week, yeah? So, do you agree with the share resolution, 9%, etc., etc.? A lot of us have already voted. I agree with 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah? And that was before the news of the potential investment. Should the vote be reset, is my question. Yeah?
Well, I mean, the actual the questions that were asked in the poll were that do you agree that... But there's new factors, yeah, there are. The answer is that we'll have to consider if we actually redo the actual poll itself. It can be done very quickly. Yeah, and the one thing that we can't do as the trust is actually tell anyone how to vote, because it's independent of every member to actually vote. We can't give advice one way or the other. But what we can do, if it's felt that the vote is actually better done again because of what's happened with the...
I agree with you, Maurice, yeah. But when the vote was out last week, yeah, and I'm not going through my phone to find out when it was, we weren't aware of the American potential letter of intent, yeah? So for me, yeah, and I don't speak for the room, obviously, I think that needs to be reset, yeah? And then us as shareholders, fans, need to reassess that vote, yeah? Because some of us would have said, no, we want Simon out. I've done it, apologies, yeah? And I'm joking, by the way, yeah? But what I'm saying is, yeah, on the, with the new news, yeah, of potential legitimate investors, yeah, we should now, as a fan base and shareholders, be allowed to reassess our votes, is what I'm saying, because we've already done it, yeah?
Well, as members...
Through Survey Monkey, yeah?
As members of the trust, if it's felt that the reason, because of the change of the actual investor coming on the scene now, we can redo the poll. Well, I'm saying we will, okay?
Thank you. Yeah.
It doesn't change the situation as far as having to pass the motions at the EGM. Those motions are the same, but they, well, if you let me finish, you know, it doesn't change what the questions in the poll are on the three motions. Those answers are still the same. Do you want to give the club the chance to actually have an investor? Because if you don't, then say no to the actual agenda. These motions will be the same. What we can do is we might be able, and I've got to talk to the rest of the board anyway. I'm not talking about the club board, I'm talking about the Supporters Trust board, to actually say, well, maybe what we have to do is redo the poll with the same questions, just send it out again, and actually the knowledge that's been actually put out by the club might make a difference to the way people vote. But we can't. We cannot.
We're all nodding here, Murray, at the front table. Yeah.
Right, thank you, Ray. I'm just conscious of the time because we've got other questions here, but thank you for an honest answer there, Murray. Murray's our board representative from the Dale Supporters Trust. Tom, you have a question for the panel.
Just a couple of quick things, one more from the accounting side and one more from the club side. So from the club side of things, has or had a decision been made on the future of the club's academy for next season, and has the new information had any influence on it?
Just going to, it's probably a really good opportunity to speak through some of the academy stuff. There was some excellent discussion in the first half with Jim about individual players, about the next ones coming through, about how we've done well to integrate the youth team players within the first team's structure, all that kind of stuff. A lot of you will know about parachute payments and all that kind of stuff. The academy funding is distributed in exactly the same way as the parachute payments. So some of you will know already, all the academies in this country, whether you're United, City, Liverpool, whoever, all the way down to our level, are all externally funded. So it's funded by predominantly the Premier League. So our academy at the minute, we get £500,000 a year to run our academy, and we have to spend £150,000 to draw down that £500,000. When you get relegated out of the EFL, you get a year's grace. So we've had that this year. We've had our £500,000. We've continued to run at Cat 3. We've continued to develop good players. We've had loads of debuts. We've had players playing up in the various age groups, etc., etc. Next season that goes down to 50%, so we automatically assume that we don't manage to sneak into the playoffs and we don't manage to get back up. If we remain as a National League club next year, we only get £250,000, but we have to spend £400,000 to draw down the £250,000. So we have to spend the original 150 and the extra 250. The good news is the most of the meetings that Simon and I have been on, and there's been many of them with the group who we've announced today. They're certainly very close to. They're heavily committed to youth development, and they're seriously considering funding the academy at Category 3 for another year. So that's positive. But yeah, to answer your question, no final decision's been made yet. We had a meeting with all the parents, all the players, probably about, what would that have been, about 6 weeks ago now, just after Christmas. So many of you will know, I'm sure, players, parents, coaches within the academy. So it's been, unfortunately, a really uncertain time for them. But we're hoping to be able to communicate a final decision on that. We've promised them a final decision by mid-April. As everyone's alluded to, it may not be our decision to make, but the signs are really positive from the group that we're talking to. The other slight constraint on that, and those of you, I'm sure there'll be plenty of you who've got Oldham supporting neighbours or Oldham supporting family members or colleagues or whatever else, they're a year ahead of us in this process. So if Oldham don't get back up into the Football League this year, they're not allowed to run an academy next year. And we use the word academy like quite loosely, lots of clubs use it, but what I mean by that is they can't run an academy under what's called the EPP, the Elite Player Performance Plan. So you're only allowed to do that for 2 years when you're outside of the Football League. So if you project that forwards, for next season, if we're still a National League club next season and we don't manage to get up into the Football League by the end of next season, the season after that, so 25-26, we'd be in the same situation as what Oldham are now, in that we wouldn't necessarily be able to run, well, we wouldn't be able to run under current rules unless there's some changes, an academy under the EPP system next year. Simon actually alluded to a really good point of what we're trying to get to when he talked about some of the revenue generation ideas. So whilst if we play that kind of worst case scenario out, whilst we wouldn't have an academy under EPP, there'll always be a youth development programme at this football club. There'll always be a player development programme whereby we're trying to get young players on the pitch for the first team. You've seen some clubs, bigger clubs than us, clubs of a similar size to us, run really successful youth development programmes whilst outside of the Football League. So many of them obviously now have transitioned back into the league, your Wrexhams, your Notts Counties, your Stockports, etc, etc. But some clubs do it a different way as well. So when we've been to places like Bromley and Boreham Wood, we've been shown around incredible facilities and been shown kind of academy graduate reels of honour, whereby Boreham Wood, for example, we were down at, they had 2 players at the last World Cup, whereas if you go through some of the EFL clubs, there's not many that are going to get that. They had Sorba Thomas and Iliman Ndiaye for Wales and Senegal respectively. So there's definitely still ways of achieving positive outcomes from a youth development point of view, even if we're not under EPP. But no, a final decision hasn't been made. The last thing I just wanted to touch upon, someone asked a really good question about Mateus Mane. There's a really difficult situation at the minute. So he's part of our under-16s age group. Due to the scenario that I've just outlined, and Oldham again will have had this situation last year, we had Mateus lined up, we've offered him his scholarship, that's a 2-year agreement, all that kind of stuff. What happens when you get to the situation we're in now is the EFL, the Premier League, the FA, all the different governing bodies, you can't enter into that contract with somebody because there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to fulfil the second year of that. We'd always be able to fulfil the first year of his scholarship, but we wouldn't necessarily be able to fulfil the second year of his scholarship. So Jim alluded to the fact, rightly so, that whilst there's an ethical thing for us and we have to take the kids' needs into account, we have to take the parents' needs into account. So he's playing for his 3rd Premier League club in 3 weeks this Saturday, so he's got plenty of offers on the table. The reason, or a reason why we're allowing this process to take place is we can't actually sign him for next year. There's nothing we can do. He could sign for us as a non-contract player, but he can't register any other way for us. So the right thing to do for the player, the right thing to do for the family, but also the right thing to do from us, from a reputational and potentially a financial point of view, is to help him try and continue his career elsewhere, unfortunately, at the moment. So that was quite long-winded, but the answer is no, we haven't made a final decision on the academy yet.
Fantastic, much appreciated. On the other side of things, at the AGM, we were told that the club had broken even for the first 2 financial quarters since the last accounts. Has the club continued to break even based on its commercial and footballing endeavours? And was the club breaking even for those first 2 financial quarters influenced by the sale of Richard O'Donnell, Toby Malarkey, Ethan Briley, and the very generous loans from Simon and Richard? Or was it breaking even under its own steam?
The loans kind of sit outside of that, but most of our income and revenue generation comes in the first half of the year, and then the second half of the year is a real struggle. So no is the answer to that. I think at the start of the year we said that we had £850,000 worth of shares that we needed to sell to fulfil the business plan. That hasn't changed, and that's why I'm saying to you at the end of March now, there is no money left because the drain comes then. No, I'm just saying the facts so everyone knows. And then the other issue that we've had, of course, is the bloody weather here. That it's just done nothing but rain ever since the turn of the year, and we've not actually played that many football and only had 2 home games. And even the revenue generation from that's all dried up now. And we really hoped to sell a player in January that didn't happen because the Premier League decided to charge a couple of their clubs with financial irregularities, which just suddenly halted all the Premiership spending. So there's lots of positives that could have happened that would have continued us towards a break-even point, but they haven't happened. So at the minute we are leaking money and doing everything we can to stop that.
But for those first 2 months, did we break even under our own steam? Or was that from player transfers?
I think it was the first.
And from.
Yeah, I think it was the first 4 or 5 months of the year we broke even, but then the income stopped, unfortunately, and that's where we suffer. Again, if you've got cash in the bank and you can ride those waves, so the player that we didn't sell in January might get sold in June, and over the 6 months you're at the same point as you would have been. But if you've got no cash in the bank to operate, you can't. Where do you go? There's nowhere to go. And I think the other thing that's important to understand where the investment coming into the club, I've tried to stress this a little bit before, and it's frustrating for us, is that every single decision that this board's had to make over the last 18 months, you have to have cash preservation as the primary thing, because we've been searching for investment, but you've got to make sure you can survive as long as we possibly could to get to that. So you know you're making the wrong decisions for the long-term future, because everything's about cash preservation and bringing cash into the football club to survive long enough. And that's a little bit different from being profitable, but cash is everything in this business.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Tom, for those questions. A couple more questions here. This chap, just introduce yourself to the panel, please.
I'm Warren. First of all, I'd like to say that the communication around this deal that's come out from the board and the trust has been a bit of a breath of fresh air, and I think it's gone a long way to quell a lot of people. Please keep that up, it'd be great. But could you just talk us through now the next step? So we've got a letter of intent. We haven't moved into exclusivity. But what are the next steps? What's the timeline from where we are now, the vote going through hopefully next week, to a deal, the money getting into the bank and the club truly being safe?
So it's difficult to say for certain because we're only one party involved in it, so it's very much driven now by the investor, but they're keen to move as fast as they possibly can as well. So we'll start talking about all the practical things of what they want to do, how the club's going to run, details of the deal, what we're going to do with the debt. There's some requirements from third parties that we're going to speak to. I think they want to know there's political support for them within the town and the wider Greater Manchester area. So it's getting meetings to try and reassure them on that front, which there definitely is at the moment. So all those things will be happening. The timelines, we've got the EGM next week, providing that's passed, then we'll be pushing as hard as we can to get it done within the next 1 to 2 weeks after that, so it's completed with time to spare before the end of March.
Thank you, Simon. This chap, you have a question, just to remind us of your name, please.
It's Dan. Hi, Simon. This ground, I think, was donated for a sporting facility for Rochdale about 100 years ago. As obviously people of Rochdale put a lot of money into it. There's been public money in terms of developing stands. It's worth quite a bit of money. I think you've estimated 4 to 6 million. We're selling the club, or 90%, for 2 million. Are we underselling? Are we losing a ground that's worth quite a lot of money? It's going to foreign investors.
As we sit here today, the ground's worth nothing.
It had value in it.
Tell me how you. So it isn't worth nothing because we generate a certain amount. I've been going through this process because we're currently getting the ground valued, and it's pretty much intrinsically linked with the football club. So if we're in this division, well, not that we're in the division, but the amount of revenue we can generate off this at the moment is the only value that the ground holds. Now, if you want to close everything down and sell it for building, then there's a whole different story there. So it's security. Worst case, I don't even think that. I think it's a theoretical risk, the ground that everyone puts out there. Is it worth 2 million? So, for example, if we could get a mortgage on the ground now for £3 million, we'd be fine. But we've tried. Nobody will give us a mortgage on the ground. How do you evaluate the ground? So we're sat here. You need to play football. That's what generates your money. You need to rent the rooms out. You need to have the bars full. You need to all these other things. Where there is big potential here is to redevelop, to modernise, like many other clubs, just about every other club that we go and visit have done, to bring in additional revenue means to the football club, and by doing that, that then increases the value of the ground, as will the football club's value increase at the same time.
Just to address a couple of those. The worry would be, obviously, I don't think the proposed investors are anyway looking in at doing this, but they're putting £2 million into the company that they could withdraw pretty much at any time, and they're getting perhaps, well, £4 to £6 million in the ground, and then perhaps the other assets are certain players. So they're buying into sort of perhaps £7 to £8 million worth of assets. There's very little risk in terms of what they're.
You could go and tell our accountant there's 6 to 8 million pounds worth of assets here and get it put on the balance sheet, because then we would be able to sell it for a lot more.
Well, I mean, I'm just going off what you've said. The ground's worth 4
I
to 6
think
million.
as a securities investment, you can have that as at the back of your mind.
Well, I mean, the worry would be that they would then look to leverage, or it may be that they're quite happy to try and get us into the EFL. It doesn't work out, which could well happen within a year or two, and it might be sold on. And the worry would be that, and it's happened other places, that people then try and leverage the ground, and then a debt's run up, and then what happens at that stage?
This is a risk, but as we sit here today, the liquidator will be holding this at the end of March and be selling that ground and seeing exactly how much money they can get for
The second point that I would then go, is any serious sort of discussions happened with the council in terms of whether they would be interested in buying the ground as they have previously, and to you?
I had a full head of hair when we first asked that question.
So in terms of, rather than
the council haven't got the money to buy the ground. We've asked them for a mortgage. We've asked about community grounds. That's not a way they're able to help us, and that's abundantly clear.
If it's obviously not possible, I mean, the ideal situation, if these investors are interested in, from a football perspective, would be to have investors in, but also try and separate the ground into a separate.
I think you're talking about a really theoretical risk there of losing the ground, because it's got a community ownership thing on it, and politically within the town, if you're looking at the worst case scenario here, if somebody was to come in, shut the football club down and try and sell it to make profit by selling the ground, it's only worth it if you're going to build something on it, and no political party in this town is going to allow building on here after all that's happened. Look at Bury. They could never get rid of it. Steve Dow could never get rid of the ground and sell it. It ended up having to sell it as a football ground again. So I think it's a right to raise that as a risk, but it's a real theoretical one and not reality. On your other points, actually, if you're an investor and you're just in it for the short term, the best thing you could do is buy the club for $2 million, invest $2 million in the team next year, and get yourself a real good chance of promotion. And then your value of everything, the football club, the ground, will go up probably double on your investment on that point of view. So, so that's what you do rather than go through the whole nightmare of trying to sell a ground. But these people that we're talking to now, Wellsong Holdings, probably the first conversation actually we'll have with them is to try and change the soccer name to football. They're in it for the long term. They've got a multi-club strategy. They want to develop players. They want the academy to develop players. They want to get into the player trading model and enjoy having an English football club.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Well, it kind of draws us towards the end of the evening. Just want to make sure there's anybody in the room, certainly for this second half this evening, if you've not had the opportunity to ask a question to the panel, perhaps if you want to raise your hand, I'll come down. There's a chap here. It's Rick, isn't it, Rick? Right, this is definitely your last question. Here we go.
Bearing in mind, Simon, that local politicians, and it's polling day, yeah? Is there anybody that has expressed an interest, if they gain control of the council, will...
Not the council.
Well, you know what I mean. Then they would support you.
So I had a very good meeting with Azhar Ali where he promised us all sorts of things just prior to get booted out of the Labour Party.
There's a lot of things that meetings.
So listen, Tony Lloyd was a supporter of the club.
Let's stand up and...
So listen, it's key for the football club going forward that we make good political connections. We've spoken to most of the MPs. The council are key to helping us, as are all political parties. But if you want something to do, lobby the council to help us and make sure this deal gets over the line as well.
Very well said, Simon. That kind of draws us towards the end of the evening. Just want one final opportunity if anyone wants to, because we have gone a little bit over already. Tom, this will be the final question of the night, okay? Because we have gone over a little bit. So Tom, the final question this evening goes to you.
So, probably just a question for Murray from a trust perspective. We've obviously heard the really sad news that George has decided to resign from the role of trust chairman, a role which, from my perspective, he seems fantastically suited to. Is there any communication to trust members planned for the future of leadership of the trust at this difficult time?
I'll answer that by saying that after the meeting finishes, I'm actually going to do some work to see if we can resolve the situation. I'm not going to say what we're going to do, I'm not going to say who I'll speak to, but we're going to try and resolve the situation. The important thing is, personalities don't enter the situation just now. It's the club that's important, and we work on behalf of the club as part of our responsibility. So we cannot let anything other than the betterment of the club to actually rule the actions of the trust. So if you leave it with me, an announcement will be made. The announcement's already been made that George has stepped down. And I'd just like to clarify one thing. There's been some comments on the message board that that's two chairmen that have stepped down, as if there's something wrong. Paul stepped down because of work commitments, nothing else. There was no other ulterior motive for him stepping down. And with George, it's something different, and that's what I'll try and solve on behalf of the trust and on behalf of the club. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Murray. Right, that does kind of bring us to the end of the proceedings. I think, obviously, in light of... Can we just have some order for just 2 more minutes, guys, please, just while we conclude things? That kind of brings us towards the end of the evening. I think in light of the announcement today, there's a very, very good lot of positive energy around the club at the moment, and I think the chairman made it very, very clear that it's in the hands of the shareholders next week, basically, the vote at the EGM. I'd just like to thank everyone that's been here tonight. I'm not sure if Jim's still with us, but first of all, can you just have a round of applause for Jim McNulty? Always open and honest. Your head coach, thank you, Jim, for being here this evening. Can we have a round of applause for our board member who represents the Dale Supporters Trust, Mr. Murray Knight? A round of applause for another of our directors here this evening, Mr. Richard Knight. I think we all agree the chairman has been very open and honest tonight, as ever. Round of applause, please, for Mr. Simon Gage. Also, please show your appreciation to another member of our board of directors, Mr. Tony Potney. And finally, last but certainly not least, show your appreciation to your Chief Operating Officer, Mr. George Dells. Thank you so much. Just a reminder, next Tuesday, the Barnet game is been streamed into the Ratcliffe kindly down to the Dale Supporters Trust. So if you'd like to come here next Tuesday to watch the beanback of the Barnet game, we're at home on the 9th of March when we take on Oxford City in the Vanarama National League, 3 o'clock kick-off. So get on the website, get your tickets, get some hospitality. I think, Murray, do you want a quick word? Sorry. Oh, it's upstairs, it's not here, sorry. It's right. Apologies, the beanback is in the 1907 lounge, so if you'd like to come and support Jim and the team next Tuesday evening in the 1907 lounge to watch the Barnet game. If not, we'll see you back here at the Crown Hall Arena on the 9th of March. Thank you once again for coming tonight, and thank you everyone online as well, and thanks for being a great audience tonight. Thank you so much, thank you.